Cool.
Okay, composed? Ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello and welcome back to Eyes on Carnivore. My name is Sean and today we're talking to Jimmy. But first, 75% of you have not hit the subscribe button. I can see you watching in the stats, so please support me and the channel and hit the subscribe button. So now I'm introducing Jimmy. Jimmy, say hello.
Hello there. Hello world.
So Jimmy is my editor, my cameraman, co-producer of the show. Let's put a big round of applause for Jimmy. Yay! Thank you very much for inserting that round of applause. Jimmy's doing the editing on this.
Noted. Yeah.
So Jimmy has been listening to me talk about the carnivore diet for the past 3 months and has become a little bit interested in it himself and has a few questions. And so let's go to Jimmy to give us a little bit of your background, who you are, what you do, and your interest.
So I'm 24. I'm male, and yeah, I love music. I've always been pretty big on health, fitness, that kind of stuff. And yeah, just through working with Sean here, I've kind of been intrigued in the carnivore diet and have been thinking about taking it on myself. So we thought I'd put a little list of questions for a newbie like myself that doesn't really know too much about it. And we're kind of just going to have a conversation and get through some good stuff here, I think.
And that's a really good idea to do some research, to ask people that have had a little bit of experience. There's certainly a lot of useful videos out there. Guys, if you haven't already checked out the channel, there are playlists set up in various categories. There's one about getting started, so have a look at that, and there's plenty of other categories you might find interesting. So Jimmy's got some questions. Let's go for it, mate.
Sweet. So I guess off the bat, Sean, is what is a carnivore?
Okay. What is a carnivore?
What is a carnivore? Yeah.
Sure. So the definition of a carnivore is an animal that consumes approximately 70% of their nutrition from animal-based sources, whether that's fish or eggs or meat of any type. So, and in the carnivore family would be dogs and cats and lions and tigers and that sort of thing. So anything that eats more than 70% of their nutrients from meat is called a hypercarnivore. So,
Right. So it's not just strictly animal.
No, well that's right. So technically, if you're having a little bit of other type products, it doesn't mean that you're not carnivore.
Okay.
And the other way of looking at it is, herbivores such as a cow or a horse might eat a duck or a chicken. So they're herbivores. What are they doing eating meat, you would say? So it's kind of like the rules for these aren't necessarily exactly strict. And looking at it as being, you're not a carnivore if you drink coffee, or you're not a carnivore if you have eggs. You're trying to do the lion diet, for example. That's not necessarily true. So I think...
Right, so it comes down to a majority of that macronutrient that you're absorbing.
Well, yeah, and if you're looking at macronutrients, we're looking at protein and fat being the essential macronutrients.
Yeah.
Whereas your glucose, which is your starches, your sugary fruits, your processed food, a lot of starches in there. They convert into glucose.
Yeah.
Rice, bread, pasta, potatoes, corn, those sort of things.
Yeah.
So you're basically cutting out carbohydrates from the diet for the most part, because the glucose is not an essential macronutrient. So there's essentially only 2 essential macronutrients, and the third one's optional. Because the body creates its own glucose on demand in perfect amounts as the body requires it, and that's called gluconeogenesis, and the body can make its own sugar essentially.
Wow,
pretty
amazing
clever
stuff. Okay, so my follow-up question: I've heard the term keto being thrown around a lot, and that's quite popular, especially people in my age.
Sure.
So I just kind of wanted to know the difference between keto and carnivore.
Okay. So let's define what keto is, and the word ketosis and the word ketogenic. So let's tackle ketogenic. So keto is colloquial term for the ketogenic diet. Now, the ketogenic diet is essentially a diet that consists of fat and protein, for the most part, animal-sourced protein. You can do it on a vegetarian, vegan type diet, but you struggle to get the right amount of nutrients, macronutrients, so the micronutrients, if you like.
Yeah.
Vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, and amino acids. So you've got your animal-based protein and a ketogenic diet. A prescription strength ketogenic diet would be under 20 grams of carbs, total carbs per day. Anything above that, you might find yourself being kicked out of ketosis. And I'll deal with that word in a second. Mm-hmm. The next tier, if you like, for a ketogenic diet is called ketovore, and that's described by Dr. Ken Berry, in fact. He has described that as being 10 grams or less carbs per day. So that's ketovore. The Mac Daddy, that's going to be your carnivore diet, and variations of the carnivore diet as well, which is essentially eliminating all carbohydrates and primarily getting all nutrients from meat, fish, eggs, maybe some dairy.
Right.
So there are your layers of the ketogenic diet, with the Mac Daddy, as I mentioned, being the carnivore diet. And let's say the lion diet might be an extreme version of carnivore, whereby you're only eating beef, no eggs, no fish. Which I found very valuable for myself. I did it January this year. I did it for the World Carnivore Month.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks in, it's like, I feel great. My eyesight seems to be getting better, and I wasn't expecting anything. And things just seem to get better once you can focus and narrow what works for you, which may or may not be the same thing for everybody. Now, so we've got ketogenic diet sort of laid out. That's the layout for ketogenic diets.
Yeah.
Ketosis is effectively the state of being running on ketones. So
as opposed to running on carbohydrates.
Instead of running on glucose,
right?
You're running on ketones. One of the main ketones is beta-hydroxybutyrate. I love that word, it's my favourite. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, which basically is a fuel source. And so every cell in the body, the mitochondria, creates ATP. That's the currency, the fuel currency, if you like.
Yeah.
And essentially, when you're running on in ketosis, you're using ketones as fuel. You're in a higher energized state. Your mitochondria are able to produce more ATP, essentially.
Okay.
So more energy. And I think this is why a lot of people are saying when they transition from one to the other, they just notice the energy improvement just by changing that fuel source.
So like you kind of stop feeling tired in like the middle of the day, and
the difference is remarkable.
Yeah.
If you've said to yourself, I'm having a bit of a slump in late afternoon, it's probably because the glucose that you've ingested for lunchtime or whatever is starting to run out.
Yeah, because I find that does happen to me some days. I mean, maybe it is because of my diet and the amount of carbohydrates I'm eating throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I guess I just crash
Right.
on some days.
The way I'm thinking about it is comparing a roller coaster to a normal train line.
Okay.
Normal train is just chugging along. It's at that level.
Yeah.
And it might go up a bit of a hill and down a bit of a slope, but generally, roller coaster, it's
Yeah, you're up and down, you're loop-de-loops. You're going slow, you're going fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and that's a good analogy.
Thanks. So I feel as though being in ketosis, just on the face of it, sounds like it's the primary fuel source for the body. And in fact, they've done tests and with the brain, so equal amounts of glucose and equal amount of ketones available for the brain to metabolize. And guess what? It prioritizes, it prefers the ketones over the sugar. The problem though, if you're not following a ketogenic diet, if you're not in ketosis, you don't have many of these ketones in your body. So the body has to prioritize burning glucose,
right?
And it has to get rid of that glucose as fast as it can out of the bloodstream, because it's essentially causing glycation, which is the analogy is like rusting the cell.
Right, it's like oxidization.
Oxidization.
Yeah.
And this is why the one of the key messaging you hear on commercial news and broadcasts is that you need your antioxidants when these things get advertised so heavily.
Yeah.
In nutrients, you need your antioxidants. Oh, it's high in antioxidants. It's a superfood.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why do you need an antioxidant in the first place if you're not ingesting something that causes oxidation?
Right, so you can just eliminate it altogether.
Essentially, you don't need antioxidants if you're not promoting oxidation in the first place.
Okay.
So the body will need a little bit of antioxidants. Just the mere fact of breathing causes an oxidative reaction.
Yeah.
But even more so is glucose, even more so is fructose, and the milk dairy related sugars, lactose and galactose. There's a few others. So how does that fit with the question?
Yeah, no, I mean, that definitely got the difference between both of them.
Yep.
Okay, so on a carnivore diet, like what foods should I be eating? Is it just all meat? Like, can I have nothing else, or is there, in the carnivore diet, is there still room for, other forms like dairy products? Can I still drink milk?
Sure.
Can I still have yogurt? Things like this?
Okay. Well, if you let's define what a carnivore food might be. So anything from an animal, that's pretty much it.
Anything from an animal.
Anything. So, the meat of an animal, the eggs of an animal, the dairy, the milk from an animal, would all, fish, of course, all sorts of meat. They're all suitable for being in a carnivore diet.
Yeah. Okay.
Is your follow-up question what's not suitable?
Yeah, well, I do have that. We will get to that.
Okay, no worries.
I was going to ask... Okay, so my next question, I hear all this hype about the benefits that people get from carnivore, and I guess I was just wondering like what I could expect, or generally what improves when you make the transition. Right.
So let's look at the extreme. If you're a 70-year-old person and you've had 10, 20 years of some sort of bad health, you would expect that particular set of bad health conditions to start improving. Typically, things like pain, stomach issues, skin issues, brain fog, those things seem to universally clear up. So for a younger person that generally has not had multiple decades of bad health and hasn't had, and perhaps has had a lifetime of sort of questionable foods, let's say.
Yeah.
The benefits might come down to what problems that you have at the moment. But again, I'll just get back to those basics. I mean, everybody seems to get, if there's any some sort of pain problem, a musculoskeletal pain, that goes away. The things like headaches and problems sleeping, brain fog, maybe mental clarity, memory sort of.
Yeah.
That seems to universally get better as well. Universally, skin conditions get better. And you might say, well, I don't have a skin condition, don't have a rash, but you'll find your skin will feel more subtle? No, that's not the word. Supple.
Supple, yeah.
Yeah, more elastic,
like
more
soft and conditioned kind of.
Yeah, more elastic, more pliable.
Okay. So there's effects inside and outside the body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Okay.
And you'll notice whilst I'm talking about these benefits, I'm not really talking about weight loss. Consider this not necessarily as a diet, because the idea of going on a diet is, I need to lose weight.
Yeah, like people do it for a reason. And the reason is usually
to lose some weight.
Yeah.
And I go on the diet, lose some weight. Okay, no, I don't have to be on the diet again. I can just go back to whatever I've been doing before.
Yeah.
Most likely just to put on the weight maybe a little bit more. And then you have to go on a diet.
Yeah.
Getting around the mindset that this is a diet might be something worth considering when you're talking to other people.
Would you say it's more of a lifestyle?
Yeah, more of a lifestyle.
Yeah.
More of a way of eating, if you like.
Okay.
But definitely, people lose weight. That's not the benefit that I see necessarily as the big thing, because it seems to be fairly ubiquitous. People will lose weight down to what their body thinks that they should be.
Yeah, like an optimal kind of range. Yeah.
I think the technical word would be
homeostasis.
Or, to get into the equilibrium, that where the body just likes to sit.
It'll plateau at some.
Yeah, plateau at a certain level.
Yeah.
So so benefits for yourself. I mean, do you have any particular health issues?
So I wouldn't say like anything extreme, but like I mentioned earlier, definitely I will get just random bursts of tiredness, and I'll just like
a burst of tiredness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just like I just feel drained, and it's like 3 in the afternoon.
In general, would that be generally in the afternoons?
Yeah, usually in the afternoon.
That's
the
bottom
weird
of the roller coaster.
It's inconsistent with when I go to the gym. Like sometimes I'll go to the gym, and then the whole afternoon I'll be sweet. Other times I'll get back, and I'm just like, I just have to go like sit down and do nothing for like an hour or two.
Wrecked.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess like a follow-up question to that is like, how long until you start to see these improvements or these benefits?
Right. And again, it's like, are you the 20-something or the 70 or 50-something year old?
Yeah, so I guess it comes down to condition, right?
It'll come down to what problems that the body has to deal with going forward. So the first thing in the first 2 to 3 weeks is the body basically getting rid of the excess glucose out of the bloodstream. Number one, that takes a couple of days. And within 2 to 3 days, you'll be in ketosis. But because the mitochondria in the cell are going, well, I've been running on glucose this whole time, it'll take a little while for the fat burning process to ramp up. So it's kind of like waking up the system in order to get yourself into ketosis.
Right.
So you're running on the ketones. So initially that might take a couple of weeks to get the glycogen out of the muscles.
Yeah.
It's a glycogen store.
The excess.
Yeah. And for the liver to say, okay, we need to start turning this stored fat that I have. So I've got a fat cell that's this big, and it starts to suck some of the fat out, process it, turns it into 3 main ketone bodies: beta hydroxybutyrate, acetate, another one. And so yeah, there'll be a transition in the first couple of weeks to get into that fat burning mode.
Yeah, and would you say it's like, should you just go straight from what I'm doing now straight into carnivore, cut it all out completely at once, or would you, like, what's your take on that? Would you recommend it slowly, kind of easing into it, or?
Right. So when you transition, and get the glucose out of your system, I think initially you've got to be aware that you will have to go through withdrawals. So much like withdrawing from alcohol, or any drug for that matter. Sugar is a drug, and the body goes through withdrawals. So it'll differ from person to person. I mean, I remember being like quite low. I even cried one time for no particular reason. I didn't know why. I just felt sad. I felt...
Why? So you had like a hormonal kind of response?
Yeah. It affected me emotionally.
Right.
But much like if you look up what addiction withdrawal for heroin or whatever, you look it up, it's the same thing. So you might have headaches.
Yeah.
You might have a bit of fever. You might have...
Change in attitude.
Mental health.
Big mood swings and things like that.
Yeah. You won't necessarily feel yourself. You might, because you're still going through the adapting into burning of ketones, you'll have less energy for a little while. So there's that. So to answer your question, the first thing you might come across is to go through this adaptation to fat burning. But then after that, you'll find that the benefits will start to kick in fairly rapidly.
Right.
Can you just restate the question again?
So it was how when transitioning, should I just like cut it off completely?
Right. So I think to avoid having
like severe withdrawals.
With severe withdrawals, it might be a good idea to transition. And there's a couple of reasons.
Like transition at a slower pace?
At a slower pace. So let's cut this out, this day, cut this out that day, and try to transition over.
Is that how you did it?
2 week period. Yeah, I think I transitioned about 4 weeks, and 3 to 4 weeks.
So when it come to like quantity and intake, was it something you had to be like counting? Like, were you counting your carb intake, your protein, your fats for that day, or was it just you being mindful?
Yeah, I was only still learning about this, and I did the research on keto, and then my eyesight started to get better, and I was able to do more research on the carnivore side of things. So yeah, the battle royale that can happen with us, and dogs and cats. I mean, you just do not change their diet significantly overnight. Yeah. Because the battle is in the microbiome, the bacteria that's in our gut. You'll have some species of bacteria that's quite which breaks down the carbohydrates, another one that breaks down. So there's different fuel sources. So if you take away...
It's adapted. It's been living on that the whole time.
That's right. And if you take away all the carbs and you've got 1/3 of your guts full of this bacteria, they're going to start dying off. There's going to be a battle with the other ones, and that's where you could have some diarrhea as a result. Right. I mean, I think I avoided all that. I didn't have any problems because I transitioned, and for me, it was, I got rid of all bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, all sugar, so pretty much straight away. Yeah. And I went half a plate of meat and eggs, half a plate of leafy greens. And that happened for about 2 weeks. And then I had another week of 3/4 of a plate of meat and just, a 1/4 plate of leafy greens.
Yeah, so you're just slowly changing like the ratio of...
Yeah. And there was a few days in there I just, I didn't have any greens at all. I just had meat.
Yeah.
But I remember the last day, and I had some beans in the fridge, and they were going mouldy, so I didn't really want to use much of it. So I had 2 beans.
Yeah.
And that was the last vegetable I've had.
Right.
Two beans, more than a year ago now.
C'est la vie.
Goodbye beans.
Goodbye beans. Okay, well, let's say I'm in that transitioning phase, right? And I'm struggling. Like I'm getting sugar cravings.
You'll definitely get sugar.
Do you have any like strategies to kind of deal with that?
Yeah, for sure. So there'll be certain cues that your body is used to now. Like the cue in the morning.
Like hunger cues?
Hunger cues,
yeah. Right, okay.
Normally I'd have something to eat for breakfast.
Yeah.
Something to eat for lunch, and I'd have a snack here and a snack there, and then I'd have dinner. And then after dinner, here's a strong cue, dessert. So
I know that one pretty well. Yeah.
So being mindful of the cues. So how to deal with it? I think the idea is if your cue is to have breakfast, then have breakfast. But make sure it's going to fill you up. So don't just have one or 2 eggs and a sweet piece of bacon. Have a lot of eggs, have a lot of bacon. And if you've cooked too much, then and you can't eat it all, then just pop it in the fridge and you can reheat it or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and again, if you've got a cue to have something, mid-morning or lunchtime or late afternoon, have some snacks ready. Some carnivore snacks, whether that's some pre-cooked bacon or some boiled eggs. They can last in the fridge for quite a while.
I got some jerky actually earlier down from the butchery, Morpeth Butchery.
We love those guys.
Yeah, we do. So kind of, would you say like having things available like that, like little
most definitely
non-carb kind of edibles that you can just because I'm the kind of guy who gets quite moody when I'm hungry. My cues are very strong. When they're on, and everybody in the room knows about
the
it.
tummy rumbles?
Well, it's more just me being like, I don't care what we're doing right now, but I need to go get food because I can't make a decision. I'm not having fun unless my belly's full. Like I get hangry, I think is what they call it.
Yeah, hungry, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm bad for it. I'm real bad for
Okay.
it. My friends know that. Yeah.
Sure.
Don't let Jimmy go hungry.
Well, okay, don't let Jimmy leave home without some snacks.
Yeah.
So you've got jerky, you've got some hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah.
You can just have a Tupperware container with some steak in it from the night before.
So I guess with the cravings though, is it like, would you say it's like a good idea to like let your friends know? Because I'm quite a social person at times, and a lot of my friends like to cook, and they have sweet treaties readily available.
Sure.
So I guess it would be like good to mention it to other people as well.
Yeah. So to try to avoid that, so eat when you're hungry. Eat until you're full. Right. If you're hungry again, eat before you go out to socialise. Maybe eat before you go out.
Yeah.
So you don't sort of get trapped into, oh yes, I am hungry, and that's right there, may as well.
Yeah.
Should you tell your friends and family? Most definitely, yeah. You might get some interesting reactions.
Yeah.
And but yeah, just letting them know that you're doing this, and you'd like their support. You might even frame it like an alcoholic. Like I'm trying not to drink. I've been drinking too much. I'm an alcoholic. Whatever. You tell your friends, I'm going out with this social situation, and there'll be people drinking, but I don't want to. Please don't offer me any.
Yeah.
I don't need that in my face, and just look out for me even.
And so, what if you failed?
Mm-hmm.
Would there? I mean, like, is that game over? Is that gonna kick you out of ketosis? Like, what's the? I guess what's the science behind?
Okay.
If you do end up having sugar, has it completely broken?
So, can you have something? I mean, sure. This is not a religion. You can do this. There's no. You're not going to lose the Carnivore card.
Yeah.
Your group membership. So you can definitely do whatever you want. And if this happens, I guess you just say to yourself, I'm going to not do that tomorrow. And
so
it's a one-off.
I guess identify how it happened, why it happened, and how can I avoid it in the future.
If it's something that you feel like it might be a weakness, you might have to consider how to avoid that in the future.
Yeah.
And definitely tell your friends and family, and you might inspire others as well, because they might look at you now and then go, "Oh, you've been doing this diet, man. How do you feel? You look great, sound great."
Yeah.
And you never know.
Yeah. Could catch on. Okay. Well, kind of a follow-up question to that, kind of about eating whatever you want. Can I still eat vegetables?
Again, there's no competition, and if you want to have a few vegetables, it's all great. Per your question before, will something kick me out of ketosis? If it's under 20 grams of carbs, then probably will stay in ketosis. May it trigger a sugar craving? Depends how sweet it is. Possibly.
How it's cooked.
Yeah, could that lead you down a wrong path?
Yeah.
Possibly. You've just got to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Can you have vegetables?
Is there a certain type of vegetables that are just lower in carb?
Yeah, much like your transitioning stage, you're avoiding all the starchy stuff, and you can have your leafy greens.
Yeah, okay.
So your spinach, your kale.
Yeah.
If you want that crap.
Yeah.
I had asparagus and Brussels sprouts and cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli.
Yeah.
Bok choy maybe. They're all fairly low in carbs.
Okay. So there is
great transition food.
Yeah. Okay. So there's an appropriate type of vegetable too.
Something I would avoid though, I'd try to avoid anything from the nightshade family.
That being?
Say tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant,
right?
Capsicum, or they're also called peppers in other parts of the world. They are high in some plant toxins that I have heard many other people say they have problems with, including myself. So I think as a strategy, you transition into the carnivore diet. You try to go in for the first 3 months, try to eliminate pretty much everything. And then if you want to try a food that you just want to have in your diet, such as tomato, try a whole heap of them and see if it causes a problem.
Okay.
But you've got to get rid of the inflammation, and you probably say to yourself, well, I don't have inflammation, but essentially if you're doing the standard diet, you will have some, regardless.
Some form of inflammation.
Yeah. So the once the body's sort of clear, call it a food elimination diet. Once you've eliminated things after a certain period of time, the body's gone, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Things like oxalates might rear its ugly head. For example, if you've had a high oxalate diet, sweet potato, coffee, tea, chocolate, peanuts and things like that, very high in oxalates, cashews. So the oxalate dumping might happen at some point with and it depends how much how many plants that you've been consuming with the high oxalates, depending how they might come out. For me, the oxalate dumping, I had it like a rash on my legs there at one point, and I had the oxalate crystals coming out of my back. It's kind of interesting. It's like, what the heck's going on there? And it's like this little lump.
Yeah.
And then, like after a few days, you can get the lump, and it's this hard lump that's just come out of your body.
Like a blackhead, kind of.
It's imagine it's like a lump of salt. Like a crystal, actual crystal, and it comes out, and sometimes it feels a bit powdery.
Okay.
So you could have stuff like that going on. So, like in the first 3 months, you'll get a really good idea how it's affecting you.
Yeah.
And if something was a problem in the past that you just didn't know. And this is what happens to many people. Then even for me, it's like when I was walking. I mean, I had the pain in the hip and the back and the shoulders and all the rest of it, but I never thought I had particular problems with my knees.
Yeah.
They weren't necessarily painful. But after a while, I realised things felt tighter, as if the tendons, the cartilage, the things that are holding things together, things felt a bit more tighter. And I think I made the comment...
tighter as in...
Imagine a marionette, a puppet on a string, and they've got the arms are connected by strings, marionette. So imagine the marionette, the strings, everything's tightening up, and the elastic bands are getting tighter. So the marionette has a bit more of a rigid flow to it, rather than having this connective stuff that flops around.
Okay.
That's so for you, with your age, you might find that your sleep patterns, because the insulin spikes you're getting probably at night time.
Yeah. After my sweet treaty.
Yeah, sweet treaty. Yeah, after dinner.
And and sleeping is another thing I was going to bring up, because I've always been quite a night owl, and usually I'll go to bed like 12 o'clock's probably my go-to. But whenever I wake up, and this is after 7 to 9 hours of sleep, it's generally always super difficult to wake myself up, get out of bed, start the day.
Right.
But once I'm past that initial point, it's fine.
Right.
But it's the waking up. And did you notice any difference in your sleep condition?
Yep.
In the morning.
I never had a problem with going to sleep. I did have a problem with sleep quality. I used to snore a lot, and I don't snore anymore.
Right.
Yeah, and waking up in the middle of the night with heartburn, with the reflux, I used to get that quite a lot, and that's basically painful.
Yeah.
But
that's all gone. That heartburn is all gone.
Yeah, that actually went away really quickly.
Yeah, right.
And I always thought it was the meat and the fat that causes the reflux. Turns out no.
Well, that's what you hear.
It's absolutely not true. It's the carbohydrates in conjunction with the meat and fat that causes a problem.
Right.
And an interesting thing as well, I mean, I used to get egg farts, like most people, eat some eggs and you have an egg fart. I eat so many eggs, I don't get that at all. Not one egg fart.
Well, I've worked with you a fair bit, and I can agree with that. I haven't smelt any rotten egg farts as of yet, so...
If I smelt it, you dealt it.
Yeah.
So... So there's definitely something going on with the sleep. I don't think I need as much sleep, because if you look at it as you're having a highly inflammatory diet, your sleep's disrupted. You probably need more sleep.
How much sleep do you usually aim for?
Aim for? I'm not really aiming for anything.
It just naturally
seems to be between around about 7 hours.
Yeah.
On average. Some days I feel like I only get 6 hours sleep, but I'm waking up probably more because I've got stuff on my mind or things to do that day, and I've had enough sleep.
Yeah.
It might be 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, which seems an early time to get up. but I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And so I mean that's something you might have.
I'm looking forward to it being breezy.
Yeah. Do you know if you snore at night?
I've never been told I snore.
You might have
maybe after a night of drinking.
Yeah.
And that actually kind of leads into my next question is,
Sure.
Can I still consume alcohol? Because I'm a young 24-year-old man that does enjoy a bit of drinkage.
Yeah, sure. May I ask, do you drink regularly during the week, or is this more of a weekend?
This is more like, not throughout the week. Maybe like once a fortnight I'll have a weekend off and I'll go hang out with some mates and generally beers, start on the beers.
Yeah.
Which I know are pretty carb heavy. So
definitely,
is there can I still drink beers, or should I start looking at different options?
Sure. So, to answer your question, can I drink alcohol on the carnivore diet? That's totally up to you.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a religion, and especially here in Australia, I mean, it's socially acceptable.
The culture is,
in fact, almost socially required.
Yeah.
If you like. So, firstly, good thing that you're not drinking on a regular basis during the week.
Yeah, I like to keep it moderate.
That could be problematic.
Yeah.
Just the regularity of it and what alcohol just in general does to your blood sugars.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to have a drink with friends, maybe a low carb beer is something that you could try. There are low carb beers out there. I couldn't tell you about them too much. You just have to look at the bottle thing and say, I'm planning to have 6 or thereabouts, or 8 or whatever. And if it's 2 grams of carbs per, and you're having 6, there's 12 grams. So you're underneath the limit of how many carbohydrates you might want to have.
That's given you haven't had any previously in the day.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe one egg might have 1 gram of carb, 1 or 2 grams of carbs, and
so I guess a bit of like planning and foresight may be required when you're planning on drinking.
So something like something like your spirits, which basically are distilled. They don't have any carbs in them.
Yeah.
So your white spirits,
your gin and vodka.
Some of those have got flavours in them. So especially the gin, you probably want to check the label on that.
Yeah.
The mixer drinks, obviously, your Cokes and all the rest of that stuff. You could have Diet Coke.
I was gonna say,
diet drinks.
What are your thoughts on no sugar? Kind of, and I do that with quotation marks because I don't know what the sweet stuff is.
So as far as mixers go, we'll just finish that off with alcohol.
Yeah.
You can always have water, ice.
Yeah.
Scotch on the rocks.
On the rocks, yeah.
Put some hairs on your chest doing that, I think. And so it's a really tough thing to sort of say whether an artificial sweetener is a good thing to have, especially initially, because you're trying to get rid of that sugar addiction, the addiction withdrawals, and this might be a trigger. And look, I don't know about you. I've not really tried that too many of these fizzy drinks with artificial like diet, but I think they taste awful.
Yeah, I've tasted a few. I've never really been big on soft drinks in general.
No,
I'm not the kind of person to go buy one. Maybe if I'm like at the pub and I'm the designated driver, maybe I'll have a little something fizzy. But I've never really been big on them, and it's not something I'm concerned about going into the transition into carnivore. If I do so.
No, I've heard people say they've got to have their Diet Dr Pepper, I don't know. It sounds like poison to me.
Yeah.
I don't think
I mean, some of the shit looks radioactive.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
yeah.
Radioactive colours, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
vibrant greens and oranges and
God knows what that colouring actually is.
yeah, and I'm not someone who takes my health super seriously, but I am very mindful of what I'm putting into my body when it comes to like highly saturated sugar content like that.
Sure. Well, that's a good place to be. I mean, I wish I was at my age, at your age when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because I had no clue.
Yeah.
And really no clue until I turned 55 and realised I've got to do something about myself or I'm going downhill fast.
Yeah.
So you're in a really good position to do this, and let's wrap it up and say, well, this question and just say artificial sweeteners. Well, keep away from them to start off with for sure.
Yeah.
You don't need them.
Yeah.
And fizzy drinks for alcohol, maybe just stick with water for the time being, and just revisit it at some point in the future if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Next.
Cool. Is there any risks or downsides to becoming a carnivore?
Risks or downsides?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first I have to say risk is a cause and effect statement. No one can say there's a risk for this, that or the other. And as with nutritional science studies, there might be an association, but an association does not confer risk. So I'm just going to reframe your question there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go for it.
Are there any issues? Yes, there could be. Again, we'll get to the analogy of are you a 50 to 70-year-old diabetic on blood thinners and blood pressure?
Right, so it comes down to circumstance.
Are you in a position where changing your metabolism significantly may require de-prescribing, certainly with diabetes medication, if you've got diabetes and you're taking this stuff first thing in the morning and you're not putting the sugar in on top of it, then you're going to have low blood sugar, which could be a problem.
You could potentially have negative effects from that. Yeah,
that's right. So for yourself, no, you don't have any specific health conditions which would give you, I don't want to use the word risk, which would give you a potential issue.
Yeah.
Just mindful of the fact that the first couple of 2 to 3 weeks you'll have the sugar addiction withdrawals.
Yeah.
Transitioning, you could have a bit of an upset tummy.
Yeah.
A bit of some toileting issues, but if you transition that slowly enough, you shouldn't have any problems.
Yeah.
You might get some oxalate dumping. Might not happen straight away.
So they're those crystals you were talking about.
Yeah, the crystals, the oxalate crystals. They're associated with kidney stones. So what happens is, like spinach is really high in oxalic acid. And oxalic acid, when it combines with calcium, forms calcium oxalate crystals.
Yeah.
And they can collect in various parts of your body. The kidneys try to flush it out through the urine, but when you've got a large quantity of it, the kidney can only do so much, and you can get kidney stones, which is an accumulation of these oxalic calcium oxalates.
Yeah.
But the body seems to be fairly clever enough to go, the kidneys are a bit inundated, so I'm just going to shove this stuff somewhere else. And it shoves into the joints and just under your skin and just really bad places.
Yeah.
So you could have that going on. But like again, in your case, you haven't come from a vegetarian background.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't have too many problems in that respect.
Yeah.
Something I didn't mention though, I think for the first 2 to 3 weeks or so, probably get some salt, some electrolytes. whether that's a magnesium, potassium, sodium type powder that you just put with the drink.
Yeah.
That might be a good thing to do.
Okay.
Because when you're dumping glucose, the body has a couple of water molecules for every glucose molecule, so when it gets stored.
Yeah.
So you'll pee out a lot of glucose with the water, so you lose water weight off your body.
Right, so it's easier to become dehydrated.
And they'll take the electrolytes with it. So when you're peeing out the electrolytes.
Yeah.
So you need to whack that in the first couple of weeks. And for myself, I've got magnesium citrate powder.
Yeah.
And I don't have it every day, maybe every 3 or 4 days. And what I find for myself is I'll have, like if I have a coffee, I'll have a coffee one day and I might not have another coffee for 3 or 4 days or even a week.
Yeah.
So I don't try to accumulate too much stuff on top of each other.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of like the idea of, are you taking a supplement for something? And if so, would you necessarily need to take that supplement every day? You could get very expensive urine by having too many supplements because it just goes out the other end. That's no point. So just to mention the electrolyte thing, how do we go with that question?
Yeah, no, covered all bases. There was this term that I've come across while looking into ketosis, and it was ketoacidosis, which I believe is a state your body can go in when there isn't enough.
Sure. So ketoacidosis, it's a medical term for having elevated ketones in the bloodstream.
Yeah.
Elevated ketones in the bloodstream. Ketones are acidic, if you like, and having too many ketones in the bloodstream can lower your acidity. So the serum blood's acidity is around
lower them or higher them?
High. Did I say low?
Yeah.
I meant high.
So you can increase your levels of acidity in the blood.
See, I look at pH, and a lower pH is more acidic.
Yeah.
So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
So,
I see.
So your body's pH, blood pH, and we might just double check the fact is right, but it's around about 7.34.
Yeah.
And that's slightly alkaline. So if it goes to 7, which in fact is neither alkaline nor acidic, it's right in the middle.
Neutral, right?
That's neutral, yeah. That's actually dangerous.
Yeah, right.
So this is something that type 1 diabetics need to be aware of because they can get excess ketones in their body. For a normal person, let's say, I hate to use that normal person. What is normal these days, folks?
Standard status quo.
The norm. So the normal people don't necessarily get very, very high ketones. Just normally with the ketogenic diet.
Yes, ketones are very incredibly weak acids. But the state of nutritional ketosis does not create any acid stress on the body. Whereas ketoacidosis is a very serious, dangerous condition that is life-threatening. And it is primarily a concern in type 1 diabetics who are insulin insufficient. It is not a concern in anyone who's not insulin insufficient. So even if you have a basal level of insulin, you will not have any concerns with developing ketoacidosis.
There is cases of people that have been taking exogenous ketones, so it's consuming a ketone salt or a ketone ester.
Yeah.
Now, my understanding, ketone salt, you mix it up in water, I guess, or having a medium chain triglyceride, so MCT oil, like a coconut oil, that increases your ketones, beta hydroxybutyrate, but not to the levels that are concerning. So I will say, however, a ketone ester has been known to induce ketoacidosis type levels, which could be dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's something you could induce yourself. But for the normal run-of-the-mill person, you would not be wanting to have a ketone ester.
Yeah.
And that might be in the realms of someone that is not on a ketogenic diet but wants to produce ketones maybe for a short period of time. Or someone that has epilepsy, for example, and they want a much higher ketone level. But I think the trick there would be you'd be wanting to monitor your ketones and monitor your glucose levels with a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, such as Keto Mojo. They do a continuous glucose monitor that also does ketones.
Yeah.
So for yourself, no worries about ketoacidosis.
Okay.
For most people, don't have to worry about ketoacidosis.
Yeah.
Type 1 diabetics, yes, there are some concerns, and I'd recommend if anybody is listening to this, look for Dr. Bernstein. He's got a YouTube channel and he's written a book about managing low carb with type 1 diabetes. With the other caveat being that ketone esters could raise ketone levels to above what would be a good level.
Yeah.
So I think that answers that question quite nicely.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for watching the first part of Carnivore for Dummies with Jimmy. Stay tuned for the next one, and I'll see you then. Please like, subscribe, and share this with a friend that might find it interesting and useful. Please leave us a comment if we can answer any questions you have about Carnivore.